Today's episode is sponsored by Globally Paid. Globally Paid is a service that integrates payment acceptance into any software to help businesses scale faster and without friction. Globally Paid handles credit card processing, fraud protection, payouts, dispute alerts, and chargeback management. And Globally Paid is all about great relationships, global payments, custom tech. Everything begins and flows with compliance. For more information, visit globallypaid.com. Hello, I'm Tony, and welcome to the Tony Shap Show. Welcome back, everybody. This week, I have Luke with us. I'm super excited to, first off, have him on the show. He's going to share some awesome takeaways for you, and I know he's a super busy guy, so I'm deeply honored for him to make time for us today. So, Luke, say hello to everyone.
Thanks, Tony. Well, it's nice to meet everybody. Happy to answer any questions and share a little bit more about what we're up to at Friday.
Awesome. So as you know, with Top 10 with Tony, I do a rapid fire 10 questions, and I start off with a one word open if we're diving right into it. So what's the one word that you could use to describe how you're feeling right now?
Well, besides caffeinated, I would say I'm trying to be thoughtful right now as it's annual planning time. So
awesome. All right, let's dive into your business. So tell us about who you are, what you do, where you're at today, and where you're going to be. So that way we have a better understanding and some context about who Luke is and what his company is all about.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Luke Thomas. I live here in Portland, Maine, and we're building remote work orchestration software, which is essentially just a fancy word for we're trying to help people work better remotely. So if you're an individual, you can use Friday to roadmap and plan your day so that you're successful and you can leave work feeling really great about what you accomplished. If you're a team leader, we help you stay in sync with your team and understand what people are working on. And if you're a company leader, we help you kind of share your work at a higher level so that you can confidently kind of steer the ship for the business. Remote has changed a lot of things. And previously people were in the office. It was very easy to do a lot of business activities and communication activities in an ad hoc kind of, not haphazard, but in a very unpredictable manner. When you go remote, you can't do that anymore. You have to be really thoughtful. You have to architect your communication almost like an engineer might architect a code base. So Friday just helps solve that gap that is created when people work together and they aren't all located in the same room.
Beautiful. And let our audience know, if you could share with us a recent win, so to speak, that you've had that you're really proud of, and also what you learned from it, Luke.
Yeah, so I founded Friday, and I always had kind of this thesis that there needed to be some kind of single player mode functionality for the product. In other words, individuals need to extract value before it expands to the team and the rest of the company. And so a quick win I'm really excited about is that after a decent amount of iteration and trying to figure things out, we feel pretty strongly that we've kind of cracked the single player mode functionality, and people are really excited about it. And so it took some work, but we've launched this daily planner functionality that individuals are really loving, and it's something that is like changing how I work, changing how my coworkers work. And people are already talking about how it's helped them have more successful days. So that's something I'm really excited about, and it feels good.
That's awesome. Now, on the flip side of that, let's talk about a recent, failure that you consider big, and what you learn from it. I know, failures make us stronger. We learn from them. We don't repeat them. We try not to repeat them. Some of us it's harder to remember that. But if you could share with us one big failure and what you learned from it, so we could be on the same page with you and take some value from that, that'd be great too, Luke.
Yeah. So for me, I'm not the most organized person, and kind of doing, we'll call it like the back office type work. The boring filling out PDFs and the housekeeping, so to speak. I would say that I haven't been as thoughtful as I should be around that, and so, I'm building a tool to help you create better process in the way that you communicate. Meanwhile, I'm over here like scurrying around, forgetting about forms and like, filling things out incorrectly. And, sometimes that bites you in the butt a little bit. And so for me, like my biggest failures are always a function of like forgetting about something important. And then not having enough time to like actually do the thing. So as a result, you get this kind of subpar result. So that's an area that I'm working on actively, because you have to have those structural pieces right, or at least you need to be constantly working at improving it. So that's consistently a source of failure for me.
Oh man, I'm sorry about that. But at least you're acknowledging it, right? You're acknowledging it and you're aware of it, because there's some people that are, aware of it and they're taking immediate action to, find a solution. And there's people who are aware of it and don't do anything. And there's people like aren't even aware of their little thing, those things that they're doing. It could be little or big, but that's really awesome. So let's move into your business expenses. So if you could share with us, what is your biggest business expense today? That would be great.
Yeah, I would say it's by far headcount, right? So as a software company, it's an amazing thing because you don't have a lot of fixed costs and you don't have a lot of overhead. I mean, as a fully remote company as well, you don't have, an office expense um, and especially as a startup, there's all these other companies like Amazon that are, giving you free credits and all this stuff. So for us, by far our biggest expense is employee headcount. I would say that's probably at least 90% of our total expenses. Because great people aren't cheap, and even as a startup, you want to be really thoughtful about making sure that you're creating a great place to work that rewards people in a variety of ways. And so for us, yeah, absolutely, 100% employee headcount is our biggest line item.
That's beautiful. And I always bring this up too. I don't know if you've heard of Gary Vee when he talks about ROI on an individual, and he always brings up his mother as a context to build that up. He says, "How do you put the ROI on your mother? Like what she's done for you?" And he says, "How do you put an ROI on a team member? All the things that you can't touch to and point to, but they've done for your organization. If you're done your hiring right, if hiring is done, it's the right team member, and they're on board with you, it's so true. Headcount, to your point, headcount is the biggest, and it's got, if you're done your hiring right and you got the right people on there. So I have to ask you another question, and when it comes to business expenses, because I'm in the payment space, and this show is sponsored by Globally Paid. Where would you say your credit card processing or your payment processing all overall for ACH and Plastic, Visa, MasterCard, American Discover, where does that fit in your top five business expenses, if at all?
Yeah, I'd say three or four.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And let's go into your what's your favorite online business tool right now?
Gosh, it's such a good question. So I'm a huge fan. I think of myself as a marketer. And so I spent a decent amount of my career in kind of content and SEO. And Ahrefs, Ahrefs, is a wonderful tool for kind of figuring out essentially like where demand is for certain keywords. And what I like about it in particular is, not only is it a way that you can figure out like what content you need to be producing to rank for, but it's also a great way to gauge market demand. So if people are searching for a specific piece of functionality, or if people are searching for, a way to solve a problem, um, you can quickly understand market demand, and maybe you build a product around that. And so I really am a big fan of Ahrefs, but personally, there's another tool that I've been really enjoying, and it's called Brain.fm. And so it's just this little app, and it plays like music to help you get into focus time. And it's all instrumental. Apparently, it's scientifically proven to help you focus faster. And I've been really enjoying it. So that's we'll tack that on as a personal tool that I've been enjoying.
I love it. And what's your best method for acquiring new high value clients?
Content marketing, for
Beautiful.
sure. So for us, we play in the remote workspace. So clearly, kind of talking about the problems that people experience when they're working remotely, which so many people are doing these days. is a great source of new traffic and business. And it's something that has worked quite well for us. We do a little bit of PR as well, but that kind of feathers into a kind of content play. So I would say that's kind of the biggest categories of new customer acquisition that we have.
Excellent. Now, if you're in my shoes, what's one question that I should ask you, Luke? Or what is one question, another way to say this is, what's one question that you would like for people to ask you when you're up there, doing your public speaking, when you're up there presenting to your team or, investors or wherever you are? What's that one question that you wish they would ask you and then no one ever asked you, Luke?
Oh gosh, it's a good question. I mean, there's a couple that pop into my mind. One thing I always like learning about people is kind of like what's the driving force behind what they're working on, right? And I guess that like people, the de facto question is like, what's your why, right? But some people ask that. And one question I always find, like I really enjoy kind of like thought-provoking discussion. And so Peter Thiel has this question that he talked about in his book 0 to 1, where I'm going to summarize it, but essentially it's like, what important truths do you believe that very few people would agree with you about? And it's really interesting because it's an interesting way of kind of sussing out if people are like, have they thought about something that to a level, like, have they thought about something in the world that is like counterintuitive or controversial or contrarian or whatever you want to call it, where they've essentially built a case, but the rest of the world would kind of think they're crazy. I think that's just a very interesting like conversation starter. And so that's a question that I always personally think is really interesting. We actually do it in some of our interviewing because it's a great way to suss out. One of our core values is like essentially diversity of thought. And a really, really simple mechanism for sussing that out is by asking people like, hey, tell me about something that like you believe that very few people agree with you about. It's less about like if you agree with their take, but it's more about, wow, like they've thought about something that most people around them like just do not agree with or think is crazy. And so I really think that's an interesting question to ask personally. So yeah, that's my answer.
That is an outstanding question to ask. Thank you for sharing that with us. Never heard anything like that, so that's awesome. Tell our listeners how we could how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, sure. So anyone who wants to chat remote work can email me. It's just Luke@Friday.app. Anyone can try our product for free, whether you're an individual team leader or an executive. That's just Friday.app. You'll be able to sign up pretty easily online. And yeah, those are probably the best ways to learn a bit more about what we're up to and to drop me a note if you want.
Beautiful. And here we are at the end. What's the one word close? What's the one word you can use to describe how you're feeling now?
One word. I mean, just energized.
Nice. Love it. Well, thank you again very much for coming on to the show and sharing your values and your value prop and what you're all about. And you give us some great gems. So till next time, from all of us, from me personally and our audience, Luke, thank you very much for coming on here, and we'll hopefully have you on here again soon.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me.
Okay. Thanks, Luke.
See ya.
And there you go. I hope you enjoyed it, and great to have you, and thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for the next episode. Till next time, onwards and upwards.